Joining me now is Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, who served in Afghanistan. Senator, what can you all do to demand accountability on behalf of the vast majority of Americans who are disgusted by the past few weeks?
Well, Laura, I share your sentiment that my patience is tapped here. For the last 2 weeks, my office, like so many congressional offices, was focused on trying to get American citizens out of Afghanistan. Joe Biden broke that promise. He promised the Taliban would be out by August 31st. He promised the Americans in Afghanistan he'd stay to get them out. He kept his promise to the Taliban. He broke his promise to Americans. Now that all troops are out of Afghanistan, it is the time to demand answers, to hold accountable all those officials who created the terrible conditions that we've seen in Afghanistan for the last several weeks. Some of these things are very simple questions to which there are knowable answers. What did the military recommend to Joe Biden about Bagram Air Base? Who decided to close Bagram Air Base? What were the arbitrary troop numbers that were capped at the end that led to the closing of Bagram Air Base? There's a lot of very simple but very critical questions to be asked, and the answers are knowable. They're sitting on a piece of paper somewhere in the Pentagon and the White House, and it's time for Congress to demand those answers in the weeks ahead. It's also time, as you say, to ensure that we are conducting rigorous oversight of the resettlement of refugees in this country. Look, we all want to protect and welcome those Afghans who served alongside American service members. We've heard from so many people in my office, service members and veterans, who vouch personally for their translator or their interpreter. But we evacuated more than 125,000 Afghans at last count. Many of these had very little, if any, connection to our service members over the last 20 years. Look, I'm glad they're out of the Taliban's grips, but they have to qualify under American law before we admit them into this country. They cannot be a threat to this country. And like the Trump administration kept many Syrian refugees in Jordan, leveraging our relationship there, that's probably what we're going to need to do with most of the Afghan refugees who are in places like Qatar or Turkey or Albania or other countries. I'm glad that they're out of the Taliban's grip, but it's not our responsibility to welcome every single one to the country if they did not contribute directly to our military forces there over the last 20 years.
Right. Well, we keep hearing things about Afghanis who are at risk need to be out of the country. Well, that's millions of people. That's not 120,000 people. We're talking several hundred thousand or millions of people. And again, everyone feels terrible for everyone suffering around the globe, but there are laws in place, and Congress has a responsibility to make sure the laws are either changed, that refugee caps are lifted, and pretty much anyone can come here and live here if they're Afghani and they don't want to be there. That law has to be written, passed by Congress. They have to live with it in the next campaign, and Biden has to sign it into law. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, Laura, part of our oversight will be looking backwards at the failures that created these conditions in Afghanistan, but an important part of our oversight in Congress is exactly what you suggest, ensuring that the Biden administration is following the law. Those Afghans who served alongside of American troops, who have those troops vouching for them, so many of whom we've heard from over the last 2 weeks, are welcome to our country. But again, more than 125,000 Afghans were evacuated out of Afghanistan. They're in places that may not have America's standard of living, but at least they're safe from the Taliban. That doesn't mean that we have to bring every single one to America.
Well, one of them is already, the Washington Times reporting on one Afghan who was convicted of rape and deported and then made it back to America on one of the evacuation flights. Again, I just don't trust these people to vet people properly or to handle this properly. There has to be rigorous oversight. All right, I want to get to one comment from General McKenzie that stuck out today. Watch.
I will tell you the Taliban have been very pragmatic and very businesslike as we have approached this withdrawal. They were actually very helpful and useful to us as we closed down operations. They established a firm perimeter outside of the airfield to prevent people from coming on the airfield during our departure.
Senator, we have 13 Americans dead, and we have the CENTCOM commander praising the Taliban. Your response?
Yeah, well, if the Taliban was such a good security partner that was carefully vetting everyone who got close to our troops at the airport, I don't understand how a suicide bomber got through their outer perimeter to our inner perimeter. These are the kinds of questions that Congress is going to be probing in the days ahead to figure out exactly how we got into the situation where we had to cooperate with a barbarian group of outlaws in Afghanistan simply to get American citizens out of the country. And now that we're actually acting as if that's something that we can be proud of, or that we should even celebrate, that we cooperated with the Taliban. We should have never gotten in that position from the beginning, and it all goes back to Joe Biden's terrible execution of this decision to withdraw our troops from Afghanistan.
Senator Cotton, thank you.